You're listening to the Oklahoma On Stage podcast. We're glad you've joined us. We can be found on most platforms, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you have any comments or questions, we'd love to hear them. So drop us an email at oklahomaonstage@gmail.com or use the comment form on our website, which is oklahomaonstage.org. If you like the podcast, please share it with someone. And now, sit back and enjoy another great episode.
Welcome back, everybody, to Oklahoma On Stage. As always, I'm Tim, your host. Today, I have a very special guest that I've had the privilege of working with myself. And, we started out the season looking for people that were a little more on the technical side of things. And I dare to say that today's guest is a hero in the technical side. Theater has something for everybody. And we try to make sure everybody knows that, just because you don't want to be in the center of the spotlight doesn't necessarily mean there's not a place for you. Theater's not just about the spotlight. There's some that prefer the world that lives behind the spotlight. Today we're sitting down with one of Oklahoma Theater's backstage heroes, whose journey has taken her from wrangling Elmo's friends at SeaWorld to managing some of Oklahoma City's most exciting productions. She's a stage manager, a problem solver, a fun fact machine, and one of the most quietly influential artists working in Oklahoma theater today. Today we're pulling back the curtain on what got her here, and if you've ever wondered what it takes to keep a show from falling apart, this is the conversation you'll want to stick around for. Oklahoma On Stage family, please join me in welcoming Scarlett Panino to the podcast. Welcome, Scarlett.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for that introduction. I really tried hard to stay quiet, but you got me with the fun fact machine.
I just kind of loved that whenever it came up in my research. I was like, okay, we're going to have to touch on that one a little bit. So we love to just kind of start out just right at the beginning and work our way here. So how did you get started in theater?
So, I almost said fun fact. Look at me, gonna just start it all off with that. But it is a fun fact. If you've ever seen my name on a program, I always thank my mom. And I always do it in a cheesy way, but in a very real way too, because she forced me in 6th grade to take theater as my one elective that I got. It was really hard to choose just one thing to do. I'm a person that likes to try everything, so I trusted my mom because she had done theater when she was in school, and she said, I think you're going to like it. I said, okay, fine. And that's why I thank her every time, because I really don't know what my life would be if I wasn't helping people create stories on stage. So, yeah, it started in 6th grade. I took, I'm from Texas, so I took intro to theater, and we actually did a radio show. We were introduced to all kinds of staged productions, and we had to make our own stories, and I just kind of fell in love with it. I had a wonderful teacher, Mr. Pittman, and he really just sparked that creativity inside me. And I actually didn't do tech until my senior year of high school, when my high school decided that they were do a musical for the first time, and I quickly realized I had no idea how to sing, but I was bossy, and so the director at the time was like, why don't you try stage management? And of course, at first I was like, stage management, what is that? I have no idea. Like, I knew what the stagehands did because I saw them moving things. I knew what the spot ops were doing, but what was a stage manager doing? It was kind of like this invisible role that I had no idea about. Turns out they do a lot. And so I was sitting there in the booth calling all the spot ops and all the sound cues and the light cues and the scrim. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is the person that makes it happen. The director is there and there's a vision. And in high school, the director never really steps away. But I realized it's up to the stage manager to make sure this thing happens. And I really like that. So I went to Trinity University for a theater acting degree. I had an acting scholarship. And then I took a stage management class and realized all the different refineries of it, and that you could actually do this as a job. It wasn't just like we need someone who's bossy and not in the show. And so from Trinity, I just started stage managing pretty much every show I could get my hands on. I did another musical. I did Company, which was awesome, with a full orchestra on stage, which was its own challenge. And then I got hired, like you said, at SeaWorld San Antonio, and I was a stage manager for the Sesame Street characters, which was its own thing because we had parades and live shows and children running around so much. And since then, I've been just trying every type of stage management for wherever spot anyone will take me.
That's how you did so well with our show. It was kind of like Sesame Street.
It's a lot of the same wrangling.
So you said that your mom forced you into this.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a begrudging thing at first. Do you remember that moment when it finally clicked and you said, this is what I want to do?
That's a good question. I think I have to give the typical egomaniac answer of when I got a lead role for the first time. I was suddenly given this seemingly impossible task where I had to serve as narrator and character to tell this story, and if I messed it up, it was messed up, and there was not really anything people could do to save me. And so I think I liked the attention, but I also liked the camaraderie that came in, because that was also my first big play that I was in. I had played like ensemble roles where I didn't have lines before, but I think it was really that moment of like, oh, this is an insane thing we're doing. We're memorizing a book, and then we put on silly little costumes, and then we perform the book as if we're live hallucinating together. It's kind of insane. And, it's so ancient. It's so, so ancient. The Greeks were doing it, in their little togas, smelling probably really bad. And then we don't have the same smell problem, thankfully, but people still get dressed up and go to the theater and have a good time. And so I felt connected, I guess, to kind of the history of humans, because think of cavemen. They were just sitting around in fires telling stories. So I liked
I'm
that.
not really sure about the smell thing. I've been backstage at some shows, and it's like, okay. I always try to keep a bottle of Febreze with me everywhere I go.
There you go.
So, okay, so you went to Trinity University. That was in Texas.
Yep.
It says that you have a dual degree in theater and also in business. Why 2 degrees?
Yeah, so I really wanted to make sure that I could get a job, is the main answer. Business is one of those degrees that is just generic enough that you can, in any interview, be like, but I have a business degree too. I know you see Sesame Street. I know you see that I worked with the vampires at Hollow Scream, but also I have a business degree. I have always had an analytical mind, and so I really don't think I could have done college and everything after if I had just one. If I had just a theater degree, I think I would be craving that structure, the fundamental understanding of how businesses work, and how to take the cool, fun, creative and turn it into something viable. And then if I had just the business degree, I would definitely be hitting my head against the wall because I wasn't around creative people. There's only so much return on investments and different things that you can talk about before I go crazy a little bit. And so my days were very much split. Like I saw 0 of the same classmates in my classes. And we're a very tiny school, so sometimes we had, 4 people in my class, and sometimes we had 60, but no overlap. And so I kind of felt like the secret agent that was going in between these two worlds. And yeah, it's a double major, so I finished the major requirements for both degrees rather than just choosing a minor or a major, because I felt like those 2 pillars really represented who I was. When I'm in a job interview or like when I'm just kind of talking to people, I tell them that people management is what I do. So in theater, that is most natural in stage management, where I'm dealing directly with actors and designers to get things going. And then in the business side, I am very much your communications person. I'm your PR person. My job, right now, I'm the volunteer coordinator at a museum, and we have about 220 volunteers who all have unique interests and needs and, stories. And I will tell you, science-minded people and actors are not different. They have their own sets of challenges and difficulties and eccentricities. And I just love people. So management is kind of where I've fallen in between those two worlds.
And I can see how they would cross over.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that doing theater has made me so much of a more empathetic person, that has seeped into like every aspect of my life. I'm able to sit down and I'm very comfortable sitting down with a person and being like, what is going on? What's going on actually? I understand what we were saying in those emails, but like what can we do? How can we move forward? How can this show or how can this, event at the museum go on? And I don't meet a lot of people like me, so I'm assuming it's refreshing.
Well, that's good. So did you, in all of that, did you learn any skills that you didn't expect that you would use later?
Did I learn any skills? I would say that my theater degree has really reinforced the scrappy mindset that I already had growing up. So in college, I actually did start a business with the entrepreneurship program, the Stoneberg competition. And it was a nonprofit theater company that's still around today. I'm not running it, but shout out to Newark's SA. And it was a nonprofit that was going to use some of the resources that public schools had, to introduce theater to people in the city in San Antonio. Mainly, we were focusing on Title I schools because that's where I grew up, and those schools that just have, the students are not as well off as some of the other schools. And so they may not be able to get to theater in whatever way. Maybe they can't afford the ride. They have to stay because their parents work full time, things like this. And so working in any nonprofit means that you're running bare bones, right? And so it being a theater nonprofit, suddenly we were like, well, we want to produce shows, but who has some curtains laying around? Who has this? Who has this? And so suddenly it became like the world's coolest scavenger hunt to find all the different things we needed, to show these kids that, yes, you can do a show and it can be pretty much nothing. It could be as much or as little as you have, as long as you're having fun and being creative. That's what it's about. And that has been really helpful in the business side of things as well, because basically in business you can prove your worth, I guess, by saving a company money or by earning the company a lot of money. well, I'm a volunteer coordinator, so there's not a lot of money in what I'm doing, but I can save a lot of money by, figuring out what people want. Do they actually need, a bedazzled pin with their name on it for Volunteer Appreciation Week, or would they just rather someone look them in the face and say, thank you so much for being here? And so I guess getting out of the material mindset and being more creative is something that has helped every aspect of my life.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that. So, looking back at Trinity, you were secretary and president of the Trinity University Players.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that was the theater department there. You won Outstanding Senior Award.
Mm-hmm.
You were also a finalist in the, let's see if I say this right, the Louis H. Stumberg New Venture Competition. Was this the business
Yeah.
that you were talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Mellon Initiative Research. What's that all about?
Yeah. So, yes, as if you can't tell, I cannot sit still for any second of my life. So I was always applying for new things. So the Stumberg competition, that is what I talked about. That's how Newark's SA was founded. They're still doing summer camps and stuff. I think they just did Hadestown, so check them out for sure. And then the Mellon Initiative was basically a grant that was open to students in any discipline. We're a liberal arts university. And so any discipline could apply for it as long as you were contributing to research in some way. So we had our very, science-minded folks who were doing like hard science research. And then I actually got to go to Vermont for a summer and complete my research, which was in a small Vermont equity theater. And basically they just had a huge archival room. It wasn't even really a room. It was just kind of like a crawl space of all the newspaper clippings from as long as they had existed. And my professor, Dr. Nathan Stith, he was my advisor, love him to death, was the artistic director at the time. And so he was like, hey, I think that you should come help me with this research. I need you to create a file system, digitize as much as you can, which is digitizing takes a long time. And so a lot of my summer, my research was sorting through newspaper clippings. But it was kind of a double-edged sword because I also got to assistant stage manage at that theater for their 2 summer shows. Like I mentioned, they're an equity theater, which just means that they're part of the Actors Equity Union. And so they had to follow rules that apply to actors and stage managers. So I got to work with this wonderful production stage manager, and she taught me what it meant to be a professional stage manager. She taught me all the rules. We lived in the same kind of like housing accommodation, which is very common with equity theaters if they're flying out actors for their shows. And so I got to conduct that research in between rehearsals. And so I was super busy, but I learned so much that summer. And like I said, I got to work on 2 different shows. One of them was called Souvenir. It was a 2-person show. The narrator's on stage the whole time. I don't need to go into it, but basically it's a great show. Souvenir, very touching. And then we did a 1-person show, and I can't remember the name. It'll pop up, but it was a fantastic variety. I got to work with different directors, different actors, and see how stage managers fit into the larger role of an equity theater. So, yeah.
It's kind of a baptism by fire there.
Yeah. I will say, Dr. Stith, my professor at Trinity, was very adamant that every show we did was up to equity standards. So I was, running shows within those frameworks even while I was a student at in Texas. So it wasn't too much of a difference, but there's a lot of legalities and stuff. Like if you're ever working with an equity theater, you cannot talk to the actors or stage managers if they're equity while you're on break. It's a break. That's what it is. And that's why a union was created, because there was historically in the past abuses of that. And so those little things, you can only work X amount of hours, and that includes stage manager time. So if you are having, a rehearsal from 6 to 7 or 6 to 10, then you need to count in the 30 minutes before the rehearsal that the stage manager is unlocking the theater, and the 30 minutes after where they're doing their report. Because if anybody goes over, you're breaking the law, which is just a different stakes than I think we get at community theater. I do want to be clear, I have never been an equity stage manager. I've only worked alongside equity stage managers.
Okay. All right. So you talked a little bit about earlier that the musical in high school was the first show that you stage managed. What was that show?
It was the Addams Family musical. So
that seems to be the baptism that a lot of people get. It's that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, I was not a Wednesday Addams, at least not in vocal range.
So what about that experience just clicked for you?
It was one of the first times that a director ever gave me or anyone else that I saw agency to take over the rehearsal for a second. Like I said, up until this point, I was in high school, and so it was really the teacher/director telling everyone what to do. And this time it was a teacher-director, but he was much more willing to let the stage manager run warm-ups. And he actually gave me my first report template that I've ever seen. He was like, I need you to fill this out every single night. And I was like, but you were here. Like, why do you need that? And he's like, this is what they do outside of high school. And I just want to make sure that you are able to do this. Because up until this point, I was part of competition theater, so UIL, and I hope this has changed since I've been in school, but the stage manager almost has no role. They sit on the side and they time the show. They are not allowed to communicate to anyone. They are not allowed to be on comms, no radios, no walkie-talkies, and you couldn't even look at one wing of the stage and signal to the actors hey, go faster, we're going to go over our allotted time. So it really was just a glorified timekeeper. So I didn't understand until the Addams Family musical, the stage manager can do things. They are a vital role into the production. And that was just different. I had never experienced that before.
That's really cool. So, leaving Trinity, did you immediately go to work for SeaWorld?
So I actually worked at SeaWorld while I was finishing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you were a stage manager at SeaWorld, supervising 90 performers and 20 parade float drivers.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big load to carry. And so what does stage managing Sesame Street characters actually look like?
Yes. So right off the bat, I'm going to just say it was not me alone. We had a wonderful team of stage managers. There was about 5 of us. And yeah, I would work about 40 hours a week, but we were open 7 days a week. So I would show up on my scheduled time, and sometimes I would have a designated track. So, okay, you're here for only 4 hours today because you're only doing the parade in the evening. Whereas, you might push it and do a 9-hour day where you're doing all the staged performances throughout the day. So my week varied on what I was doing. But basically, you and the team are the only supervisors of these performers, and you're in charge of everything from safety standards, because if you're dealing with a big license like Sesame Street, everything has to be up to standard. Elmo is a very specific color. Big Bird is canary yellow. These are trademark characters, trademark colors, and Texas Heat is notoriously bad at bleaching things, and so we'd have to sometimes watch and be like, oh, Prairie Dawn has a little bit of a suntan. We gotta make sure we're using the other costumes while we do these runs. Oh shoot, it's drizzling. Big Bird is made of hand-dyed like ostrich feathers. We got to get him inside right now, even if we're in the middle of the parade. So every production, I don't even know if I'm explaining this as clear as possible. Let me go back and kind of explain the structure. So we were part of Sesame. It was called Bay of Play, which is a faction of Sesame Street at SeaWorld San Antonio. So there was like a little portion by the Orca Stadium and everything that was Sesame Street licensed and themed. Everything was Sesame Street. We had a main stage, and on there we would do block parties and other staged productions that would happen 3-4 times a day. In addition to photos, which typically that was a different stage manager that dealt with that day. And we would go out like 7 times a day for photo opportunities. And then we had the parade daily, and that would be in the evening, and that would actually go through a larger part of the park. So we kind of had 3 to 4, depending on how you're counting it, main areas where the stage managers were. All we had was walkie-talkies. I mean, my shorts would be pulled down because I had so many walkie-talkies on my belt. And basically what you do is you get there before the performers, and then you write out who's going to be who that day because, like, how tall are you, Tim?
I am 6'2".
Okay, so you would technically range into Big Bird. So you could be one of our Big
Not the
Bird.
first time I've heard that.
You would be a Big Bird, you could be an Oscar, you could be a Cookie Monster type of character. So you would, as a performer, get trained on all of those things. You get in the costume, make sure it fits, right? Just because you're tall, you might be a little bit lankier or stouter than another 6'2" person. And then you would basically, as a performer, learn all the audio tracks because they would automatically play, and your job was to make that mouth move at the right time as you were doing choreo and all this other stuff. So the stage manager would come in, write down who would be who, and you post it on the board, and then people would sign in to say that they were here. If somebody was sick for whatever reason or the car didn't start, you had to immediately start solutionizing. Who else can fit in this? What are the roles we can go down without compromising safety? And then you would just go out in front of the audience and clap along to the songs, pretending to care about the kids that are at your ankles, but really you're keeping a laser focus on the performers. We had a whole code system on who... we had a whole code system basically that meant different safety things, and you were basically just the handler of the character while they were in the public's eye, and then you were also making sure that everything behind the scenes was moving on. Does that explain it?
Sure. So how many hours of Sesame Street itself did you watch in preparation for managing this?
None. I mean, nothing since I was a kid, right? I was a PBS kid. Very proud of that. None, because I got a lot of it at work. It's just truthfully, I can still hear Elmo in my dreams. No, the cool thing is that it's playing constantly. The ambiance music of that area is all Count Von Count, it's all Elmo, it's all Bert and Ernie. We would do seasonal shows, so we had like Elmo's Christmas Wish. We had different, we had a Mardi Gras parade, a summer parade. So it was always fresh enough that I didn't ever have to go home and study. There were times when I had to tell the performer, I don't know if Cookie Monster would know how to do that dance move. Let's keep it, let's dial it back. But most of the time, yeah, I got my fill at work.
Okay. So what's one of the biggest lessons you learned from managing such a large scale entertainment?
There's a lot of lessons to be learned. one of my biggest ones was you cannot underestimate how much people are listening. Yes, that's good news if you're a stage manager. Hopefully the actors are hearing you more than you feel like they are, but also they are definitely hearing you more. So I learned a level of professionalism that I did not need before I was working at SeaWorld. You mentioned that we worked with around 90 performers a day, and that's true. And all knew each other. They all knew each other very well and had known each other before I even thought about working at SeaWorld. And so in their eyes, the stage management team was their boss, and that is true. I saw them as peers, and that made it a little complicated when I felt like I just had a rough day and just want to talk to somebody about it. Or, did you see what that visitor did? Like, well, what I may not have known is that visitor was so-and-so's second cousin. And so I learned very quickly that your words affect people. And so I was able to kind of distance myself from the performers. And sometimes they'd be like, oh my gosh, so-and-so said this to so-and-so. I was like, I don't need to know. I don't need to know. I really don't. Is it going to affect the show? Great. Then I go tell them. And I have kind of kept that in all the things that I do, in all the productions I do, because there are conversations that you need to have with your production team, and then there's conversations that need to be had with the actors. And sometimes they're not the same conversation. And most of the time, if they are the same conversation, you're not going to have a productive situation. It's going to be, well, I said this, I didn't say that. I don't have time for that. What I need to do is make sure that we do a great show. And if you need to go scream it out with someone in the parking lot, great. Be here in 5 minutes. Like, we need to move on. And I learned quickly that it can't be like high school, because then things just won't happen.
It's very good. So from there, you moved to Oklahoma City in 2023?
Mm-hmm.
What brought you to Oklahoma City?
My boyfriend.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, he's a good one. We've been together, it'll be 7 years in October, 7 or 8. I don't even know at this point. So after I graduated college, I stayed in San Antonio for a little bit, and then I found a job here. So he had already had a job here, so I just kind of followed him, which is not the most girl boss answer I could have given, but it is the truth.
That's fair. So what was your first impression when you came to Oklahoma City?
I was surprised. So I mean this in the least judgy way possible. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, which is like the 6th largest city in the nation. I grew up there. I was born in San Antonio. I was nervous about leaving everything I knew. Frankly, because if you ask any Texan, and frankly the other way around, if you ask any Texan, if you tell them why you're going to Oklahoma, they'll go, oh gosh, why are you doing that to yourself? And I work for OU right now, so I feel it the other way too. Like, oh God, why would you go to Texas for holidays? I don't know, my family, maybe. That's a good answer. But I really didn't know what to expect with Oklahoma. I really kind of expected to not ever do a theater production again, because it wasn't my job that I was going to be doing. I didn't have the networks that I did in San Antonio. I didn't have, people looking out for me when I moved here. And so I just kind of was like, man, okay. And then I went to a Friday night art walk in the Paseo with my boyfriend. And I maybe had a little bit too much to drink. And I saw Oklahoma Shakespeare in the park. I was like, oh my gosh, a Shakespeare. I hate Shakespeare. I'm not his number one fan. I think we can do a lot of creative things, but I'm not a purist in any way. I was just like, Shakespeare means theater. That's all I was thinking. So I dragged my boyfriend into Oklahoma Shakespeare, and I met the artistic director, and I was like, I want to see your backstage. And he was so excited because at that point they had just built their outdoor theater. Tyler Woods is the artistic director, and he was so excited to show me all the different lighting equipment that they got. And I don't know, it was just a really good moment. And that from that point on, I was like, oh, I think I can do theater, even if it's not, with this person or that person, or maybe it's not a show I've ever heard of. I think I can do it. I think that there is a situation here that I could find myself in. And so, yeah, I was kind of surprised how quickly that happened, because it was kind of like my first week here or something, which maybe just proves the point that I am always seeking out theater in every state that I am in, inebriated or not.
So you just kind of gravitate towards it.
I guess so.
So, coming to Oklahoma, was it the museum that brought you here? Was that the job that brought you here?
Yeah, so I was determined to move to Oklahoma City, and then I just looked up any and all jobs in Oklahoma City, and I failed because now I'm working in Norman, but it's close enough. It's a 30-minute drive, and that's about how long it takes to get anywhere in San Antonio. So, yeah, the museum is a really interesting job. I had no prior knowledge with museums. I had been a classroom teacher, like an after-school classroom teacher for a while, so I knew that an education department at a museum would be something I would be interested in. But I was actually visiting my boyfriend. I had not moved yet, and then they sent me an email. They were like, "Hey, can you do a Zoom interview?" And I was like, "I'm here for 48 more hours. Can you do an interview now?" And so again, it was just fast. And I love it. I know more about dinosaurs than I ever thought I would.
Very cool. So now you said you coordinate volunteers.
Mhm.
How does the biodiversity fit into all of that?
Yeah, like of the state?
Well, the state, just, I mean, in your realm, just, how do you I should say, how do you keep it diverse, or how do you embrace the diversity in your role?
In the volunteers?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a whole process to becoming a volunteer at the museum. It's a little bit of a bigger commitment than, say, working at a food bank, where you sign up for a shift. We thank you so much for doing things, and then we never see each other. The volunteers at the museum are very mission-driven, from what I can tell. They are willing to go through a whole application process, a whole interview process, a whole placement process, and then typically they do stick around for a couple years. I realized that museums kind of do attract a certain type of folk. Volunteers at museums are notoriously retired folk of a certain income bracket, who have time on their hands. But we are so connected. I work at the Sam Noble Oklahoma Museum of Natural History. Don't even think I've said that. But we are connected to the university because we're part of OU. And so I was like, well, surely there's smaller roles we can give for students, right? Or there's less intense commitments that we can give folks who work full-time. And so I really met with all the different departments and found out that, yeah, there's not just one type of volunteer that can be helpful in each situation. There's all kinds. And so what I do now is, once I get an application, I set up a time with them. I don't even really read all the finer details of their resume that they send in. And I kind of allow myself to be surprised. Because you can look at a paper and you can be like, oh, well, I don't think this person will be really good at data entry. I don't think they'll care about it. But then you meet with them and you're like, this is my passion. This is what I wanted to do my whole life. I've never had a chance to get my foot in the door. Then it's like, okay, well, I hear you. You're here. Thank you so much for being here. Let's see what we can do with it. And I think just having that open-mindedness has allowed volunteers who typically would not be able to give their time or wouldn't be considered for these roles spaces. So, yeah, I guess to answer your question on how I keep the diversity, it's just being an open mind and not having preconceived notions on who can do what things.
Very cool. So, looking at Oklahoma Theater, you've stage managed for OU School of Drama.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else here? Oklahoma Shakespeare in the Park, Jewish Theater of Oklahoma, Carpenter Square, Jewel Box. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you covered it.
So, what was the first show that you stage managed here in Oklahoma City?
It was for Carpenter Square Theater. It was Kodachrome, directed by Tom Crowley. Yeah, and I actually jumped into that one mid-rehearsal process. So I was just the production stage manager, which was something I had not really done before, where there was another stage manager for the rehearsal process, and I basically jumped in and did all the technical stuff during Tech Week and beyond. That was interesting. It was a little difficult because, one, I didn't really know who these people were because I was new to Oklahoma, but also because I literally was not there while the show was being created. And so that was an interesting thing. It ended up being a beautiful show and worked out. But I don't think that is my preference. I do prefer to be with the actors. I like to meet with the director before rehearsals ever start, before auditions, if possible. Sometimes that's not possible. To kind of poke their brain on what they envision the show to be. Before anyone even starts reading a line for them, what do you hope it to be? And then in that conversation, I realize what directors emphasize. Some directors are purely for the acting talent. They want the best people. Maybe they've even had a person in mind when they picked the show. And that is, when all else fails, that's what they want to be highlighted, the acting. Some directors are more technical focused. And they are like, well, I really want the story to be told with these awesome transitions or these costumes I've been crafting or the lighting. And then I can take what the director tells me and there's not like, it's not like a either or situation. It's just what do they prioritize? And then I take that in my mind for every step of the process as a stage manager. I guess I should explain exactly what a stage manager is or how I view it. A stage manager is the right hand for the director during the rehearsal process. The director is there making sure that the actors are making their vision come to life, but really the stage manager is the person writing it down. Stage manager is the person that's, when you are trying to memorize your lines, writing down what you missed, calling out the line that you just can't get right. And it's a very quiet role during rehearsals. And then, what I don't know if people realize, maybe your listeners do because they do theater, but the director doesn't have to see a single show that the audience puts on. They don't have to. It's not in their contract. A lot of them do because they're awesome. But really, once Tech Week starts, the director ideally should be able to step away and the show just runs in their vision because the actors know what they're supposed to do. The stage manager knows what the tech elements need to do so they can work with the designers to make sure it happens. And then you have a show. And it's done by the time the first audience member sees it. It's done. Yes, it'll grow, of course, but it is conceptually, creatively finished. And so the stage manager is there to make sure that the show's integrity is there every night or day if it's matinee. So my role as a stage manager is I really like to be quiet and hands off during the rehearsal period, and then once tech happens, that's my time. And I just make sure that all the pieces are fitting together. And if there's any snags in the way, I ideally know the show so well by that point that we can solve it and not even have to sweat about it. So that's my kind of ideal about theater and stage management. My favorite directors are the ones that allow me to insert a little bit of creativity and my ideas into the show, but by no means is that a requirement for me to have a good time.
That's cool. So in my time in community theater, I've learned and noticed that every community theater handles stage managers a little differently. They have different responsibilities at different places. Some have the responsibility of simply calling the cues. You keep, as you said, keep track of all of the cues, and when the showtime rolls around, you call those cues. Others, they are strictly the booth themselves. I think our recent show, that was primarily your job. You ran the lights and the sound and everything else. Then there are others that the stage manager's job is strictly just that. They manage the stage, all of the stuff that goes on behind, the movement of the props, the transitions, all that kind of stuff. In your mindset, which is your preferred method?
Yeah, I can do it by myself, right? There is such a role of a production stage manager and an assistant stage manager. Our last show, Moriarty, which Tim was Sherlock Holmes in. Just gonna put that out there.
Shameless plug. I didn't pay her a thing for that, so.
He did give me a mug, so watch out.
Oh, there's that. Okay.
No, our last show, Moriarty, I was very fortunate to have an assistant stage manager. And that show had so many technical elements. We had 2 unnamed characters that sole job was to assist in transitions. So it was a monster of a technical show. Could I have done that myself? Yeah. Would I have been spread really thin? Also, yes. Beyond. And so if there's a choice between being a production stage manager, which in Moriarty was like lights and sound, in general timekeeping as well, and then the assistant stage manager handled the backstage, I prefer the production stage manager side. I kind of just like to watch the show, frankly. I like to watch the show and kind of be the person that has to make those split moment decisions, whether that is to turn on all the lights because we have an injury or something broke, or if it's to hold house because the women's bathroom is backed up. I like to be there for those decisions because I think it gives me a sense of peace to know what's going on. Whereas when you're backstage, sometimes you're not privy to all that. Sometimes you just don't get to see that happening. And if I have the choice between purely backstage and in a booth where I'm able to see it, I will choose the latter for sure.
You like to be the one making the decisions rather than trying to tell someone else to do it.
I do. I like to make a good decision.
So I think there's a little bit of a power trip in there somewhere.
What? No. Then I'd be a director.
So, being here in Oklahoma City, again, listed off multiple theaters, several handfuls of shows that you've done. What would you say are some of your most memorable shows?
I always love a show where the cast is just like family. And I know that's such a cliche, but when you can truly just see people shed their ego from work or school or whatever and get on stage and just play, that's what I love. Part of me is chismosa, which is Spanish for like gossipy. So I do kind of love when a show has drama. I mean, why would I? Why would I be around theater and actors if I didn't love some drama? But I like it when it doesn't impede the show. So I like when it's a silly moment. Or oh my gosh, can you believe somebody's hungover right now for this matinee? We gotta get going. But I do also love when things go wrong a little bit. I think that's probably a little selfish of me, but it gives me something to do. Uh, I've had a couple shows where there's just an injury, which is unfortunate. I don't wish an injury ever in shows. Um, you were not the injury I was thinking about, but yes, you did shed blood for that show, so thank you for your commitment. So injuries are never fun. I do like when casts play with each other a little bit. I've had shows where actors just fully recreate what's going on stage behind the scenes. That's my favorite, when they feel comfortable enough and they're not stressed. Like, we've gotten to the point where the show is so down that we don't need to stress about what we're saying. We know it. Now we can play. Now we can play backstage. Now we can pull little pranks on each other. Those are my favorites. So no, that wasn't a very specific thing, but also I don't think I can start telling stories because people might get called out.
Yeah. People actually do listen to this, I'm learning. So
hey, there you go.
So you made a post on LinkedIn talking about being recognized in promotional materials for backstage performers and the importance of that. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yes, so the post in question was actually an appreciated post for the Jewish theater because earlier this year I did the production of The Apple Tree. I stage managed it. I was not the only behind the scenes person. We did add Joe Kelly, so pardon me there. But at the point of posting, I was the only backstage person. And so we had big names. We had Amanda Lee, we had Scotty Taylor, all these people who audiences have seen and recognized for their fabulous work, right? And I don't need the spotlight by any means, but it is nice when I get a shout out for what I do because, as I've mentioned, I actually go to more meetings and more rehearsals than the actors do sometimes. So I'm just as committed as the actors and the people who get seen on TV, or not on TV, on stage. And it was just so simple. The Jewish Theater of Oklahoma just posted my headshot, which I'm pretty proud of, with my bio. And it said, "Meet the team, stage manager." It did not probably take a lot of time because they were already doing it for the 3 actors on stage. And it was just a little bit of something that I could share on Facebook. Hey, Mom, look what I'm doing. Hey, Grandma, look what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for the, fame or the money. So little things like that, it kind of goes back to being scrappy in the business world. It does not take a lot to do that, but it does mean so much for the people involved because now I can share that and be like, hey, come see my show that I'm doing. So also it's good for the theater because it adds promotional material for them that can be shared. Yeah, I just think that behind the scenes people, yes, they don't want to be in the spotlight, but that doesn't mean they don't want to be appreciated for their work. So, I think more theaters should be doing stuff like that. Shout them out.
Without the people backstage, the people on stage wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it wouldn't work. It wouldn't happen.
It would be a little goofy. You'd be all in fluorescent lighting.
Or in the dark. Maybe if the house lights go down and nothing comes back up, you've got a problem.
Yeah, that is true.
So I know you're in between shows right now.
Yeah.
So looking forward, what's next for Scarlett?
Man, that's a big question, Tim. Um, right now, in terms of stage management, I just look forward to growing my network even more. Uh, I really would like to, especially this summer, I don't have any shows lined up. I would like to see more theater. That is one of my main goals. Um, because I hear these names that keep coming up. I hear these directors that have this star power in the community theater scenes, and I just kind of want to have a baseline for what that means. What does a show by this theater look like? What typical things does this actor appear in? Because it just makes me feel even more like a fangirl when I walk into a staged, not a stage reading, a read through, and I see that actor. It's like, oh my gosh, I've seen you before. You feel like a total creep. Um, but it's also gives you a baseline for what they do, who they are, how do they carry themselves. So my goal is kind of just to see more theater, get out there. I do have to make a confession. I am like the world's worst audience member. I think because I'm so used to being silent backstage or in the booth that like it's like pulling teeth to get me to laugh. Even though if you hear me, I'll chuckle. I'll enjoy myself. I always enjoy myself. But like, yeah, don't invite me to a staged reading if you want like a good laugher. That's not me.
So, any dream projects that you'd like to work on?
Yeah. Um, I have been wanting to direct for a while. I was supposed to direct a show my senior year of high school, but it just never happened. Um, should I say the name of the show that I would like
Don't
to?
yourself out, yeah. Sure time.
I would like to direct the show Summer Brave by William Inge. It is Picnic. It's like 95% of the same script as Picnic, but it actually is the ending that the playwright wanted. So if you're not familiar with Picnic, basically it tells the story of this small town. There's an older sister and a younger sister, and the older sister, by the end of the summer, runs away with this outsider to the town, this big, hunky outsider. And that's how Picnic ends, and it's great. Classic. I've been in it. Your mom's probably been in it. Everyone has seen it. But when I found out that there was an alternate ending and that it was the initial ending that the playwright wanted, where the older sister does not run away, she actually realizes that she needs to stay to take care of her family and her community. To me, that feels like a modern retelling, but really it's just the initial telling that the publishers were like, no, nobody's going to want that. Like, she's got to run away with the guy. I don't know. I think there's just something so interesting about it. Plus, it's a classic. Picnic is such a classic feeling and vibe. It's like a perfect summer play. So yeah, that was the show I intended to do my senior year of high school, and I still intend to do it somewhere in the future.
I think everybody's got that one play that it's their unicorn that they keep in their pocket that is going to happen one day. I've got mine, but it's not my show. So, so are there any? You kind of talked a little bit about this. Are there any directors that you'd like to work with?
Mm.
As the smile creeps across her face.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think there's any directors per se. I do want to work at different theaters. You listed the ones I have worked at. I'm kind of treating it like a passport. Like, I want to try all the different theaters.
Sure.
But no, I haven't. It's always a treat when an actor I've worked with asks me to stage manage for them. I always take that as a gold star, like I've done something right. So if I've ever worked with you and you need a stage manager, my Facebook messages are open.
And she might just tell you no.
Hey, you might be asked to drive to Shawnee every night.
Well, that was kind of my next question. If you're thinking about looking, outside of Oklahoma City?
It's tough. So I mentioned that I work in Norman. I live actually in Del City, which is where we're recording this. So it is tough for me to do rehearsals that are not in the metro area just because I get really consumed by shows. Obviously the time is there. Like you're meeting for hours a week. It's like a second job. And I find that my health does really get impacted. There's only so many McDonald's and Brahms you can drive through in a week and not feel like absolute garbage. So being able to come home before rehearsal, make a meal or have, a fresh-ish meal really does change a lot. And now if some place would like me to, I don't know, stay in housing accommodations for a little bit, that would be different. That would be equity stage management style. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But as of right now, I do prefer to keep things in the metro or in Norman, like OU Drama School, so that I have kind of a home base I can go to.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay, so as we draw this time to a close, we try to wrap everything up with what we call our curtain call curveballs.
Okay.
So
I'm nervous.
Yeah, these are just random questions off the wall, maybe about theater, may not.
Okay.
Okay, so they're designed to be just the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so put your thinking cap on and
It's on.
let's go. Okay.
Strapped in.
If you could stage manage any show in theater history, past or present, which one would you pick and why?
Oh, I think I would have loved to be on the original stage management cast for Hamilton. That show is technically beautiful, but they also, the original cast talks about the scene where they do the wedding in normal forward, and then in rehearsal they said, now do it backwards for the next song. And that, that face you just made, your eyes opening, the startleness, it just feels like that room was so creative and lively to be part of. And of course, I could try and go on tour now, but in that original moment when you knew that you were doing something, I would have loved to be there.
That's interesting. I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep that in my mind. So what is your personal pre-show ritual, the thing that centers you before all the chaos begins?
Yeah, okay. So when I was an actor, I would be very noisy. I just needed to get all my noises out. So I would do lip trills, I'd jump up and down, I'd do a lot of hoo, ha, very dramatic actor stuff. But really I was just so anxious. I just needed to move. So it was not uncommon for you to see me running laps in the stairwell. I don't get that anxious for stage management. It's just a different mindset. It's not as vulnerable. You're not putting yourself out there. I don't have to memorize all the lines. But I do keep a little Sudoku book in the booth with me. So during scenes where I have to be listening, like the cues coming up in 2-3 script pages, I'll be doing Sudoku. And I actually have a book from my first show with Oklahoma Shakespeare in the Park a couple years ago. That's when I started it, and I date it every time I finish it. And performance number 4 of Midsummer Night's Dream. And so that's the only time I crack out that Sudoku book. So it's kind of like a mini log of all the different shows I've done and which shows I had more downtime in.
That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
What's a smell that instantly transports you back to childhood?
Hmm. So this is niche. This is San Antonio niche. But a bean and cheese with bacon taco. That is one thing that I absolutely am gutted about Oklahoma. Y'all don't have breakfast tacos the same way San Antonio has breakfast tacos. And I'm not talking about Austin breakfast tacos. Get out of here. El Paso might have the closest, but San Antonio breakfast tacos are like beautiful. So if I smell that specific smell of 2 bean and cheese with bacon tacos in a paper bag, yes, it's greasy at the bottom. Green salsa, red salsa can be there, but the green salsa's got to be there with like styrofoam thing, large styrofoam sweet tea. Like that combination of a smell would bring me right back home.
Yeah. What's the most stage manager thing you've ever done in real life outside of theater?
Oh gosh. I'm just bossy in everything I do, I think. But I will tell you this story about my coworker. I don't know if she listens to this, but her name is Tiffany Orr. She worked as a professional stage manager for many years before coming to the museum. I will say things like, oh, 5 minutes until gift shop opens, or 5 minutes until our next meeting, and she will say thank you 5 back. And it is the most like, the double Spider-Man meme thing, because there's just these like ingrained things in you that you can't get out. Like something, I think she also one time like was taking a break and she was like, don't talk to me like on my break. But she didn't mean it very mean, but she was equity. And I was like, okay, stage manager. And then we bust out laughing every time.
Nice.
We just kind of see each other eye to eye like that.
Okay. What if you could eliminate one backstage headache forever? What would it be?
One backstage headache. Oof. Maybe like, can I say that I don't want to do strike ever again?
I think that would be fair. Yeah. That would be one that all of us would be, yes. But somebody's got to do it.
I know, and it really does make sense for us to do it. It's just like, okay, maybe I changed my answer, and maybe this is a format thing. I wish closing night was not a matinee, ever. I wish we had closing night, where we were able to do a last hurrah and then go out into the night and do whatever we wish to do instead of having to do our laundry and worry.
And some places do. They don't come back for a Sunday show, so you get on Saturday night. And that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I want it to be more momentous than it is sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we did the dang thing. We did something so cool. How many people can say they've gone up there and done that? I have so much respect for people who take a hiatus from being on stage and then come back, or are willing to learn a backstage role that they've never done. That is amazing. I haven't had the chance to leave theater and come back, but when I do, I'm expecting flowers. I'm expecting everyone to show up, because it is freaking hard, people. It is hard to put yourself out there like that.
Musicals or straight plays?
Straight plays.
Comedies or dramas?
Drama.
Okay.
Drama to watch. Comedy is to stage manage.
Okay. Let's see here.
This is your time. You can ask me anything.
What's your favorite backstage snack?
Peanut M&Ms. I'm sorry if you have a peanut allergy. I think you need to work on that. But don't worry, because I will administer your EpiPen, but that is my favorite snack.
What's the weirdest thing that you've ever had to fix, rig, or tape together during a show?
Grover's eyeball.
Okay.
So at SeaWorld, the actors see through the mouths of the Muppets. They don't see through the actual eyes. So the eyes are sitting about, I don't know, 6 to 8 inches above their head. And they were doing this beautiful Christmas show about all their wishes, and Grover's eyeball just straight plucks off and rolls off stage left. And so we had to, we had a whole system on how to flag him down and tell him, go off stage, go off stage. The kids screaming. It was traumatic, I'm sure. Muppets are already traumatic, but that was another level. And then we had to tack it on. And I actually do think we stopped that particular show and said, everyone's so sorry, we're having technical difficulties, but that doesn't mean we didn't use that Grover costume in the next show. we just rigged it a little bit. And then one time I had an actor that couldn't stop ripping her pants. I don't know what that was about, because she wasn't doing anything that warranted that.
Okay.
And so I had to patch up several pairs of her pants. So
very cool, I guess. If you could instantly download one new skill, Matrix style, what would it be?
Singing. I would love to be able to sing. I think being in a musical would be so fun. I've never had the privilege to be considered for a role. But I don't know. Maybe I would never be a stage manager if I could sing. So,
that was the reason.
Yeah.
Which theatrical superstition do you secretly believe in, even if you pretend that you don't?
I believe in the ghost light. I believe in the ghost light. You should always leave a little light on stage for the ghosty ghosts. They say it could be to prevent more ghosts from happening so actors don't fall off the stage, which there's practicality in that, right? But I like to think that the ghosts like to perform at night. So.
And they need to have spots as well.
They need all the technical stuff. But I do have one. It's not a superstition, but it is a talisman, I guess. So I'm wearing it today. This necklace, it is from Kendra Scott. I did work for them while I was in college as well. But it is their signature dichroic glass. I have a necklace of it. I have a couple earrings, but I will always be wearing dichroic glass if I can help it for a production, because that is the same material that the stage lights are made of. And so I am worried that if I don't wear dichroic glass, everything will fall apart and everyone will die. So if you see me,
well, there you go.
You see my sparkly necklace.
No, that's something to hold on to. Well, we've come to the end of our time, Scarlett. I appreciate this time. Thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun. So thank you for coming, for being a part of this. I love your story, and again, those of us who, and of course, I'm a techie at heart anyway, but those of us who are on the stage would have nothing if it wasn't for those behind the stage, and you are a class act and definitely one of the heroes. So thank you for all the work that you do, and please don't stop. What you said a while ago about I've not had the privilege to leave. Well, good. And you don't get one. Well, so, please keep doing what you're doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Tim. This was really fun.
Good. So everybody else that's listening at home or in your car or at work, we appreciate your time as well. Thank you for taking the time out to spend a little time with us, give us a little slice of your life as well. We ask that you check us out on the web, oklahomaonstage.org. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram and on YouTube as well. Anything else, and just above all else, I would say, continue to support the arts.